Hi, it's Christine. I hope you are all doing well during these challenging times. I wanted to take this opportunity to make this video and show you how to make the two types of masks that I have been making. I'm fortunate in my life and at a point in my career that I have the time, the talent, the equipment, and the resources to make these masks and to give back. I've searched hundreds of videos. They're all great, but I've taken elements to create these two masks that work for me based on how my brain works and on the materials that I have. To date, I've made over 350 masks for frontline workers, essential workers, and the homeless throughout the country. There's a lot of people less fortunate right now, and I'm grateful to be able to give back and to contribute to the causes because all lives matter. So let's get started. The first mask I'm going to make is a basic pocket mask. It has elastic on both sides. Both masks have a pocket or a slot up on the top that to add an extra layer of protection, a paper towel, a coffee filter. Now they're saying the HEPA filters from the vacuum cleaner bags. Remove this before you wash it, but both masks have this top pocket. Again, for this mask, elastic on the sides, I need two 8x8 pieces of fabric. I use cotton fabric. I do not wash my fabric before I use it. This works for me. I don't want to have to wash it and have to press it out. Again, this works for me. So two 8x8 pieces of fabric. Elastic. We know elastic is a hot commodity. You can't get it. Well, you can, but not till June. I was fortunate enough before this broke out into as big of a production it has been with the masks to, I got a hold of 72 yards of this 2mm elastic jewelry cord. This was awesome. This was great, but I ran out. And fortunately, I have a sister who loves me dearly. Went on a quest and found me 144 yards of, what is this? 144 yards of 1/4-inch black elastic. This is like liquid gold. I mean, this is just so amazing. I found another vendor that I got 40 yards. I had a shipment from Amazon. Thank you. I've had friends send me elastic. This is absolutely amazing. So I'm really grateful again for the supplies that I have. A bread twisty. This is what I use for the nose piece. Now, other videos shows a pipe cleaner. You can use jewelry wire, but again, depending upon the supplies that you have, but I like this bread tie. When I'm putting all this together, I'm looking at the construction of it, and I'm trying to maximize my time and simplify the process. So the more streamlined the process is for me, the more masks that I can get made. So again, this works for me. So I have I have these pieces. I'm going to take my 8-inch fabric and I'm going to press in a 1/4 inch. I'm just going to fold over and press about 1/4 inch on both pieces, the front and the back. Now, if you want to use an 8x16 piece and fold it over, that's fine. Again, this is just what works for me. Okay, now I've gone over to my machine. I would normally go to my machine, but my camera guy's on furlough, so I'm not gonna move the camera. So I've made all this for us. So once I've sewn, once I've done my, I ironed in my seam here, I run a straight stitch across. And what this is doing is I'm just finishing the seams. This is gonna be the top of the mask, like I just showed you. And I'm just finishing this so it doesn't fray. So again, straight stitch on the back. On the front piece, I'm going to take my bread twisty and I'm going to put it about halfway and I'm going to tuck it up under that pleat or under that fold. I'm just going to tuck it under here like that. Okay? And then I'm going to run a zigzag stitch. And that's going to seal that bread tie in. And it's going to look like this. Okay? So these are now, this is my top pieces. Okay. So now I'm going to come over and I'm going to do right sides together. And I'm going to need 2 pieces of 7-inch elastic. Now, think about who these masks are going to. If maybe they're going to gentlemen, maybe the gentleman has a beard, a larger face. warehouse workers, if they have to wear another form of PPE, maybe a hard hat or safety goggles, you want to have some level of comfort. So I'm starting with 7 inches. I may go to a 7 1/4, 7 1/2. I've got several prototypes up here that, again, I'll play with it because I want the mask to have some level of comfort. I don't want it pulling on my ears. So I really have taken into consideration how I'm constructing these masks for the end user. So I've got this, my back piece where I've sewn in that single stitch, and I'm going to take my elastic, again, I'm using 7 inches long, and I'm going to lay this elastic right underneath where I've stitched in about a 1/4 inch down. It's going to look like this. About like that, okay? And then I'm going to bring my top fabric, where I've got that seam, and I'm going to lay it over top just so it's nice and even. Excuse me. Bring this to the edge, and then I'm going to pin this in. Now, I'm not a pinner. I don't like to pin. When I'm making these in bulk, I have piles of fabric and piles of elastic, and I'm just feeding this in as I go. That's just, again, it works for me. But for this video, I'm going to pin this in. So here I've pinned this first piece of elastic, and I'm going to open this up, and I'm going to make sure this is flat, and I'm going to bring this around about 1 inch from the bottom. And then I'm going to bring this other piece over, and I'm going to line it up at the corner. And I'm going to, come on, allergy season. I'm going to pin this last piece in here. So it kind of looks something like that. Okay? I'm going to do the exact same thing to this side. I'm going to lay this piece of elastic right underneath this crevice, put this over top so it lines up there really nice and neat. And again, I'm going to pin this in. I've got plenty of room to get my hand in, and I'm going to come around and make sure this is about 1 inch from the bottom. And make sure that's flat, going the same direction. There's nothing worse than coming off the machine and pulling your elastic out, and you've got one going one way and one going the other way. Ask me how I know. Okay, so that's kind of what it looks like. Looks like that. It's kind of funky. All right. Now, I would normally go over to my machine, but, you know, camera guy, furlough, so I've made all these pieces for us. I'm going to start on the far right side of my machine, 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to start up at the top, and I'm going to back stitch over that elastic, and I'm going to come on down, and I'm going to back stitch just 1/4 inch, standard 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm going to back stitch over this one. I'm going to come down to the bottom, 1/4 inch from the bottom. I'm going to leave my needle down, lift my presser foot, turn it. I'm going to run a straight line 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to get to the end. I'm going to leave my needle down, lift my presser foot, and turn it. And I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 stitches. And the reason I'm going to go up 3 stitches is because where this elastic is, this is going to be about the same spot. There's nothing worse than getting done. You can see here, it's just in about the same spot. You don't want to have one piece of elastic higher than the other because it's just going to be awkward. So 1, 2, 3, back stitch over that elastic, come all the way down, back stitch over your elastic, and then come off the edge, and then you're done. Comes off the machine, looks like this. Okay, so you turn it inside out, just pop out the corners, make sure your check with your elastic, and do a quick quality control. Again, I get sewing so many of these, and maybe it's night and I'm tired, and you know, I get up the next morning and I, you know, oh, well, that wasn't, you know, that's not even, or I've stitched off it, or the elastic is backwards, and that's okay. You know, that's okay. It's okay. I make mistakes. I just throw it in a basket and then send them over to quality control for further review. Okay, so you can see I've kind of finger pressed this. Now, I may take this over to my iron and give it a burst of steam just to straighten it out, because again, I can work much better with freshly pressed fabric. Now, if you take it over and you give this a burst of steam, this has a plastic base to it. And if you get your iron too close and it's too hot, that's what's going to happen. So just be careful when you press this. So this kind of looks like this. A little backpack, Barbie going to the beach. See, there's a little backpack here. Okay. Now, I am going to pin my pleats in the center. Some crafters and some tutorials have the pins on each side. I'm not a pinner. I don't like to pin. I don't want to run pins through my machine. I have made over 350 masks. I have not broken needle. Again, just not a pinner, but I will pin the center. So I'm going to go like this. I'm going to come up about 1 inch. I'm going to use my middle finger and my forefinger, and I'm kind of just going to, okay. I'm going to come up about 1 inch, and then I'm going to pin at the center. And I've got these long fingers that I use to my advantage. Wings on a fighter jet. So I can pin that in. I'm going to come up again, use those long fingers, come across, pin a second one, and one more, pin a third one. Yeah, I don't measure. Those of you who know me, I don't like to use patterns. I just kind of like to wing it. I can figure that out. I can make one of those. It looks pretty easy. I'll figure it out. Okay, so it looks like this. Looks like a little bow tie. Okay, so it looks kind of like this. All right. Again, my pins are in the center. Some of them will pin on each of the edge. Again, I'm looking for efficiency. Now, I may take this back over to my iron and just give it a quick press just to make it go through my machine a little easier. Okay, so now it looks something like this. Okay, like that. And that's how the back looks like. So you can see it's pretty even. Now, with your pleats, you want to make sure that your pleats are lined up. See how these are laying really nice and even? You want to make sure you have those pleats nice and even, because if they get bunched up, or you're not paying attention or whatever it is, you could end up with something like this. You see how I really botched that? So it just looks kind of awkward. So I'll send that over to quality control. So it looks like this. Now, I put about a 1-inch stitch on both sides just to seal up a little bit of this top pocket. So what I would normally do is I would go over to my machine, but again, camera guy furlough. So I'm going to just stitch about 1 inch, about a 1/4 inch down and about 1 inch long, and I'm going to stop about a 1/4 inch before I get to the edge. And you can feel where the edge of this elastic is in and where the bulk of the fabric is. So again, 1 inch over, leave your needle down and turn, leave your needle down, lift your presser foot and turn it. And now you're going to be coming this way. Now, if you're new to this process and you're not a sewer or a quilter, you want to be careful because your presser foot's coming into the pleats and you could mess up your pleat. So just be careful of that. And like I said, I have these really long fingers, so I can actually hold this down and work this. I can come all the way around my presser foot and work this through with my fingers. So I'm using that to my advantage. So again, about a 1/4 inch down from the top and about 1 inch in. Back stitch it, go over to the edge about a 1/4 inch, leave your needle down, turn your fabric, and just a nice straight stitch just about a 1/4 inch down. I get down to the bottom about 1/8 inch. I leave my needle down, lift my presser foot, and I turn it. And then I come as close to this bottom edge as possible, and I just run a straight stitch. Now, if you're using the 8x16 and you're folding it, you don't need to run the stitch, but you can if you want. Leave my needle down, turn it, and now my presser foot is coming with my pleat. So I just 1/4 inch, come all the way up, leave the needle down, turn it, and then just about 1 inch in back stitch, and then I'm done. Pull it off the machine. Pull my pins out. This is what it looks like. Okay, make sure again your straps are going the right way. You can see, I'll show the back because it'll show you so you can see here where I just did about close that top pocket. I come straight down, I come all the way to the bottom, I come up, I come over, back stitch it, and I'm done. Okay. That's pretty good. Now, again, I don't want to have these masks pull on my ears. I want some level of comfort. So this feels pretty good. It's not tight. I got a little bit of, a little bit of pocket down here for air so I can breathe a little bit. This just works. This just works for me. And of the, like I said, 350 plus masks, again, it works. And I'm also being cautious with my supplies because each one of these takes about 15 inches of elastic. So again, I want to make sure that I'm maximizing my supplies. And again, you have that pocket for that extra layer of protection. Okay, mask 2 is very similar, but it's more of a pocket mask that has these sleeves to give you an alternative option to the elastic if you don't have any. You can use ribbon, craft ribbon, shoelaces. Those that are into duct tape that thinks duct tape fixes everything, will have at it. The first 100 or so masks I used this 2mm jewelry cord that I mentioned earlier, which again, now you can't get. And what I liked about it is I was able to feed it through here, just tie it. I just tied it really loose. And then I just gave it to whoever. And then when they got it, they could adjust it to their ears and then cinch it and then tuck it in. You can kind of see here. I've already tucked this in here. And this is, again, because I could size this with the elastic that I had, it made it a little bit easier. But again, if you don't have elastic, you can use the shoelaces, the rope. Now there's a lot of masks out there that have the ties. I don't like them. There's nothing wrong with them. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do the bias tape. But again, I'm also working with I have a lot of material. So I'm working with the materials that I have. And again, time and efficiency. So this mask, I'm going to show you this one here. So, and this is the same mask that I make for kids. And I'll show you those dimensions in just a moment. So I have 2 pieces of fabric, 9.5, 8. So I'm working with 8-inch fabric is my height for every mask that I make, because I can cut just strips of 8 inches and then adjust it to the 8x8 or the 8x9.5. The second piece of fabric, 7 inches, 8 inches. I do the exact same thing with the folding and press the seam and sewing in a straight line, sewing in the bread tie. With this one, when I'm done, I take the 2 pieces right sides together, I lay them down, and I kind of, again, right sides together, I lay them down, and I kind of just try to center them. I don't measure it. Again, I'm not a pattern girl. I just like to wing things, and again, I got 1.25 inches, something like that. That'll work out. Okay, so I got right sides together. It's about even on both sides. At the bottom, I'm going to run a 1/4 inch straight stitch. That's it. Then I'm going to go to my iron, and I'm going to press this seam inward. So my zigzag stitch is coming this way, and this bottom stitch is, I want my seams to come the same direction. Okay, so I fold that up, I press it, and then I'm ready to go. Okay, so face up. So this is kind of what it looks like. Now I'm put my pleats in. I'm going to do the pleats the exact same way as I did in the first mask. Got my pins, and I'm going to come up again, use my fingers to create that pocket. And I can do these blindfolded for as many of them I've done. Okay. Okay, it looks like that. Now, since I don't have any elastic in here, I can go back over to my iron and give this a quick, and just give it a quick shot. Now, I'll probably do it upside down so the pins are facing down so I don't run the iron over the plastic head pins, because when this is all over, I'm going to have to buy more pins, but that's all right. So it looks like that. See, that's pretty even. You have the same amount on each side. Okay, now, red clips. I have these little red clips that I really like. You can use binder clips, you can use clothespins, whatever you have in your arsenal. I'm going to take this piece of fabric and I'm going to fold it in half so this edge meets the contrasting fabric. And then I'm going to fold it again. Until I get something that looks like that. About a ½ inch. About a ½ inch. Okay. Do the exact same thing to the other side. Fold it in half. Sometimes I have to finagle it. It didn't press right, or it's off a little bit. And even if I fold over the contrasting fabric, some of the contrasting fabric, no, that's fine. It'll work itself out. Okay, so this is what it looks like. I've given myself about a ½ inch sleeve on these sides, so I have enough room to needle through the elastic or the fabric or whatever I'm using. And that's what the front looks like. So now I'm going to go to the machine. I would normally go to the machine. On the inside, I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to move it to the far left, setting on my machine. I'm going to start, let's see here, I'm going to back stitch a little bit. And I'm going to get as close as I can to the edge, about 1/8 of an inch, 1/16 of an inch to the edge of the contrasting fabric. And I'm going to back stitch down here, and then I'm just going to come off. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. And again, it's going to give me this pocket or this sleeve on the side. And now what I can do is I can take my little crochet hook or a needle, and I can use, if I don't have elastic, I can use ribbon. I've got, again, some of this jewelry cord that I love. I can just needle that through there like that. Oh, allergies are killing me. Okay, and then I can just needle this through. I'm gonna play with a little bit. And then, come on. See how it pulls through really nice? Now, if I'm doing some kind of a fabric or material or elastic, I'll do about 12 to 13 inches. Tie it in a little knot, again, just really loose. And then whoever gets it can cinch it. Now, if I'm making them in bulk, I'll just tie them. And then I put a little note in there that they can adjust them. But I really like this this design. Now, I probably would not use the flat elastic in this, because this would take, using 12 to 13 inches, that's going to use almost 26 inches of flat elastic when I only need about 15 inches to make this mask. So again, I'm just trying to be efficient with the supplies that I have. And then this is going to look like this. Okay? And there's my pocket. Look at that. It's nice. There we go. Just like that. Okay? Maintenance of your masks. I recommend that if you get a mask from me or anyone, wash it first and wash it regularly. These are non-N95 compliant, non-hospital compliant in any way, simply a barrier. And again, as I mentioned earlier, you can add that extra layer of protection. Both masks have that top slot. Think about who these are going to. Maybe a senior, maybe someone who's challenged. And you know, you want to make sure they have enough room to get in there. Washing, warm water. If you're going to wash them in the washing machine, I recommend you use a mesh bag. If you have a machine that has an agitator and this gets caught, it's going to tear. It's going to rip. Again, hand wash in the sink, a little bit of warm water, a little bit of Dawn if it's good enough for ducks. Just wash it. When you're done, just shake it. It'll dry by morning. If you have to dry it, in the dryer on low. Again, this is a plastic-based component, and if it gets too hot, it's going to melt. So, again, it'll lay flat. It'll and it'll dry by morning. What I don't want to see people do is, you're out and about and you do this, and then you come back, you hang it up, and then you go back out later. You've just cross-contaminated your mask. So again, practice good hygiene with your masks. I mentioned earlier about the kids' masks. I make this same mask for the kids. It looks just like this. And this is kind of what it looks like. And I got this smaller elastic that I got. I don't know what size this is. I got some of these smaller ones. It's a lot thinner. I don't use it for my adult masks, but I do use it for the kids' masks. Same thing. I can feed it in, tie it, and then when the parents get it, they can just adjust it to the kid's face. The dimensions for the kids' masks, let me just check my measurements. 8.5 wide, 6.5 high, and your centerpiece 6.5 by 6.5. It's the exact same construction as these, except that you can just see the little difference here. Here we go. Let me do this. So you can kind of see a little bit smaller. So it really doesn't matter the age of the kids because, again, you're going to adjust the elastic to their face. Washes the same way. Everything is the same. That's it. I hope this video was helpful, and if you can make a few with what I've just given you, that's great. If you can make extras and donate them to the local EMS, maybe the local homeless shelter, or even a senior center, I know they would appreciate it. I want to thank everyone who has helped me along this journey and this quest and contributed to helping me make these. I'm really grateful for my family and my friends, and to have a job that allows me to do this, and to be able to make these masks and get them to the front lines and to those that need it. I'm ever grateful. Be well, stay safe, be kind, take care.